You're down 16 points with 9.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Your fans are booing you. At this point of the game, you already have 2 turnovers, if not 3. You're on your way to giving up over 500 yards of offense. It's unbelievable that the Seahawks win this game. It just doesn't.
No,
it's just blew me away.
When you don't have your A game and you find a way to win, right? That's what makes championship DNA.
Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barbin. With me is Jeff Dover, and let's talk football.
We're a couple of football fans that watch college the NFL. We hope to earn your like and subscribe today. This is our review of the turning point game for the Seattle Seahawks against the Rams, the last regular season game. What are your initial thoughts? But last regular season game between the two, you know what I mean?
Between the two, yeah. Week 16, I think this was. Yeah. So going back to watch this game, it's unbelievable that the Seahawks win this game. It just doesn't.
No, it's just
blew me away. I guess I just forgot how much the Rams dominated this game for how much of the game, and then the wild comeback to win.
Yeah. So in case you're not familiar, it was, when you just pull up the box score, it's 38-37 Seattle over the Rams in overtime, right? And I didn't remember this game super well. And watching it, both of us watched the full game from the beginning. And like you said, I was struck by how much the Rams dominated this game. The time of possession was like 28 minutes to 5 at one point. It felt like Seattle couldn't stop the halfback dive by the Rams. Kyren Williams was just getting 4 or 5 yards every time, just going right up the middle, which then opening up exactly what you want to have happen. Open up the passing game because Stafford threw for 457 yards. And so it's absolutely incredible that Seattle came back. And I think this was, like you said, is a really key win for them this season.
Yeah, it has to be. It's hard to find. We try to find what the win was, where you can say, okay, now they're contenders. Like throughout the season, at this point, they're 11-3. They don't even they haven't even clinched a playoff berth yet because of the competitiveness of the West, right?
Yeah.
So they actually need this win or a tie right here just to secure a playoff spot this late in the season.
Yeah, and it's 11-3, and they haven't exactly had a murderer's row with their schedule so far.
Do you have that up there?
I can get it real quick.
Yeah.
You can
Let's
talk
get
for a
the
bit.
schedule up, because at this point of the season, they've already lost to the Niners. They've lost to the first game to the Rams. They have a couple of better wins, but at the time, we wouldn't have known those were good wins, which would have been Jacksonville, I think, and the Texans. But at the time, Jacksonville, we didn't know was going to rattle off whatever it was, 13, 14 wins. However, Jacksonville had a great season. And the Texans started the season really slow. So when the Seahawks beat the Texans, it was early in the season, and the Texans were just looking like a middle-of-the-road team. We didn't know that was a historic defense with the Texans. We didn't know they were going to win 10 games in a row, and they were going to win a playoff game. So even though, in retrospect, beating Jacksonville and Houston back-to-back those are great wins, at the time, it wasn't obvious those were good wins. So it's hard to find the signature win.
Right, and they lost to the Bucks, which ended up like they started 6-2, but then had a bit of a downturn afterwards. They barely beat the Cardinals, so that there was a lot of I don't think you'd have been super confident in what this team was. Like they lost to the Rams after that, and then they beat the Titans, which they had like one win in their first 10 games or something like that. So yeah, you're still not 100% sure what kind of Seahawks teams you have at this point.
Yeah, we know the defense is good, but again, we need thinking they're going to the Super Bowl and winning it. There's at this point of the season, until they beat the Rams here in Week 16, it's not obvious they're a Super Bowl capable team yet. If you just look at the resume, you could look at the individual players and all their stats and say that's a championship defense. Yeah, well, where are all the signature wins you would hope for to give you the confidence? So to me, this is the win that makes them like, oh, they can do this. And it's partly because they beat them here in the most improbable way. It's completely improbable, which to me, that slays the dragon of beating the Rams. Because at this point, Stafford's the MVP. Like it's just, oh my God, the Rams are back, right? They're just looking way, way too strong.
Well, we talked about this, what was Seattle going into this game and who they played and what you were getting and stuff. That's not the case for the Rams, right? Coming into this game, I think they had the 3 games in a row. They had 30 or 40 plus points in the last 3 games or something like that going into this one. And in the past, the Rams have started slow and then gotten better as the season went on. So this really felt like they're hitting their stride. And they played the game like they were hitting their stride, like they were doing whatever they wanted, and it was like they had a huge lead going in the fourth quarter. And looking back at it, like I don't know if you would have done anything differently, really, like it, in terms of on offense or defense, at least, right? For the Rams, like it's crazy.
And McVay must just be still wake up in cold sweats just over this specific game. Now they get another shot at them in the NFC Championship game, and that's a great game, and the Seahawks win that game too. So to me,
really different game, right?
Yes.
Like that felt like a completely different game.
These were the 2 best games of the year to me: the NFC Championship game, which was essentially the de facto Super Bowl, and this game. This game was just bananas. So for those of you who haven't gone back and watched it recently, I encourage you to do, especially a Seahawks fan, because it was crazy, this comeback. But to me, first of all, the box score, to your point, does not tell the story. If you looked at it, you'd expect the Rams to have won by 3 touchdowns.
Yes. Yeah, which they were like leading a lot, like had a 2 score going in the fourth quarter. Like it was dominating time of possession, like they're throwing and running. Like it was and containing Seattle. Like it's not like they were going bananas on offense either. So it's it's really, the box score does not feel like this. And part of it is the special teams. You always say it. It's a 3-part game, and people always forget that because those are special teams can really change something around. And Seattle really looked dead in the water until they returned to kick for a touchdown, and that just really got the momentum back.
Yeah, so that punt return, Shaheed has a 55-yard punt return for a touchdown, and that's like in the fourth quarter too, right?
Yeah.
And that spurs the comeback, because right after that, I have some notes here. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place getting to these notes. So right after that kick return, they put the Rams 3 and out, and then the Rams' ensuing punt was kind of a lousy punt. Yeah, and that gives Seattle a short field. So it's quickly falling apart for the Rams here, and I think that So after the short, here we go. Seattle returns a punt 55 yards for a touchdown. They put the Rams 3 and out. And then right after that, it's a two play drive for another touchdown. So things turn around in like a minute and a half. All of a sudden, all the momentum is on Seattle's side. Oh, and they convert 2-point conversions to get back into this one, right? Because they're down by 16.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how they come back, and all of it happens in the third quarter with 9 minutes left is when all of this starts happening.
Right. And that's a really good point about the 3 and outs, because when Stafford threw for 457 yards, they rushed for 124 yards, that you wouldn't have said the defense had a good day, but they were critical. They had 3 and outs. The Rams did, right? In the second half there. And that's what allowed Seattle to get back into it. And it looked like the Seattle defense that we've seen more regularly than we had up to that point. And so it's funny because when I was making my notes, and it was like, the defense really struggled. They were still key in making this comeback possible.
Yeah, the last 5 Rams drives are 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, missed field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out.
Yep.
So they completely, and that's in the last 9 minutes of the game. The Seattle defense bows up and gets the job done. There's a couple other times too, a critical red zone play where they bowed up in the red zone. So even though they gave up a ton of yards, it was weird. Statistically, it looks terrible. They gave up over 500 yards and 450 yards in the air and all of this stuff. But the defense did come through, like you said, when needed, especially at the end of the game. And we always say winning's a skill.
Yes.
And at the end of the game, it doesn't matter what the game looked like. It doesn't matter if the game plan went out the window.
Yep.
Just play football and do what it takes to win. It doesn't matter if it's on your team's script. It just whatever this particular game requires, you got to get that done. I mean, Darnold throws 2 picks in this game, and Cooper Kupp fumbles on his way into the red zone. So they overcome a 3 turnover deficit too, which is completely unbelievable that they win this game.
That was the other note that I had here about Darnold. Like, because you wouldn't have said that he had a great game, like his 270 passing, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. He got sacked 4 times. But what was, what would change my overall grade was his resiliency, because things were not going well. But they needed a touchdown on that last drive, and he delivered, and he played really well. And for it to not go well, like really poorly, and for him to be able to still execute that was really the difference, because he had sort of the reputation, right, of like, that's why Minnesota let him go the year before. It's the can't win the big one, or like the too many turnovers in the big game and stuff. And he was not that in this game. Like he was super resilient and played amazing when he had to. We didn't have an end. He had no time left to do it. Like it had to be now or never. But he did it. He stepped up and did it.
Yep. And it went terrible the season before, at the end of the season, right? The last game of the season and the playoffs. So, and the Rams were involved in that too. So you could really just, it's the Rams. The kryptonite right now for Darnold is the Rams. Can he get past this team? And they're stuck in the same division with them. The Rams are coming on strong from the end of last year through this year. This is it. Can Darnold beat these guys or not? That's the whole thing, just revolves around that. And like you said, he comes through at the end when it matters. Not to mention in the NFC Championship game, he just plays amazing. But this is the game where, I mean, I have a note here that Seattle fans are booing hardcore at the end of the third and beginning of the fourth. They're not happy.
I know that it is funny to look back, like in hindsight, right? Because this is the team that wins the Super Bowl and stuff, and they're 11-3 at this point. They're being booed multiple times during the game, like not just sort of one time get frustrated, like multiple times during the game getting booed, and that's because it's hard to overstate how dominant the Rams were in this game. Time of possession, running offense, like they had the ball forever. And it felt like Seattle was not in it.
Well, the other thing that was tough for the Rams, I have these like little momentum shift notes here. Every time as the game is progressing, the Rams keep answering when Seattle scores. Now, there's a couple of times where Seattle holds them to field goals, which turns out to be super critical, because that's why the game's still within reach, where the Rams can't convert a few drives. But the Rams never give up momentum for any real length of time here. At the end, they do, but they don't give it up for any stretch of time during the game. As soon as the Seattle puts a drive together, the Rams answer. Even if they only answer with a field goal, it's still an answer. So that crowd never gets to full throttle. Obviously, at the end, they're going bananas, but they don't get to full throat till halfway through the third, or the fourth quarter.
Right, and even in that last drive, it's still kind of unlikely that, like, now they have to drive and get a touchdown, and they have to convert a 2-point conversion, right? And it's so it'd be hard to it still felt like at that time they could not win, So that was crazy. The other note that I have here is that the Rams' defensive line looks really good, and that makes me think about what it's going to look like this year, because the number of times who is it? Ford looked really good. The verse obviously is amazing. Who's the other guy? Kobe Turner looked incredible, right?
Well, Turner had that drop back from his tackle position and got an interception.
That's unbelievable. But he was just manhandling that. They mentioned that multiple times in the broadcast. There was a rookie guard for Seattle, and that guy, he was just manhandling him. What's his name? We just said it. Turner. And they're back this year. Now they're going to have Garrett at the edge too, which is nuts.
And almost for sure, Aaron Donald's coming back.
At some point,
at time
right?
of recording, it sounds like as long as his training keeps looking okay, it's almost inevitable that Donald's coming back too. So yes, you lose Verse, but you replace him with Garrett. So this line will be even better this year. But we're not talking about the Rams. We're talking about the Seahawks here. So now I have a note here saying this game was defined by big plays. And not just offensive big plays, but we've talked about the special teams big plays. There was also Josh Wallace had a 56-yard interception return. Like, that's a major big play.
Yes.
On offense, we have at least 12 offensive plays of over 20 yards, right? And a 20-yard plus is what the NFL defines as explosive. And I cut it off at 20 because of that definition. There's multiple 19-yarders and 17-yarders as well.
Exactly.
They're just not in my list here. But Walker has a 55-yard touchdown run and a 46-yard screen pass that sets up another drive. So it sets up another touchdown, their first touchdown. So that's 100 yards in 2 plays by Walker, one running and one receiving. Shaheed has a 31-yard end around, totally explosive play, not including his 55-yard punt return touchdown. Nakua went bananas. He had 220 something yards here. So he has a 54-yard reception, a 58-yard reception, and another 41-yard reception. He was shredding them. Now in the fourth quarter,
to your point about these big plays, what I was struck by was that this was a genius example of play calling from both sides, right? Because they lined up in Jigba in the backfield. And then when he came out, was like a linebacker had to cover him. That was one of his catches. Puka, they used him in all kinds of places. He did an end around one time. He was in the slot. He would just, and so they were super creative on offense. You could see why Sean McVay's considered one of the better offensive minds, and same with the Seattle coach. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Well, Kubiak, but he's gone now. He's got his own gig, and but he deserves it with the Raiders.
Yeah. But it was just a real chess match in terms of play calls that really put people in the position to have those big plays that you were talking about.
Yeah, this is just elite football at all levels: coaching, execution, talent. Obviously there's mistakes, but there's always mistakes in games. But it doesn't get any better than this. Like, this is
Mike McDonald. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah,
really
head coach Mike McDonald. Yeah. But to continue on with the big plays, Xavier Smith has a 48-yard reception. JSN has a 27-yard. The crazy thing, JSN 0 yards in the first half, and he ends up with 100 in the second, or 97 in the second half. So he just starts going off. And there is no way to contain a player that good. At some point, he's going to break out, and 100 yards and a half, that's big time.
No, and that's part of the play call thing I was talking about, right? Like, because I think that he was controlled or contained in the first half, and then they did more creative things with him in the second half, which is really to their credit that it was that they were able to get him that more yards, and like you said, in the second half.
You could say the 2 best receivers are in this game, JSN and Puka Nakua, or at least
they
2 of
at the time
this game
at the time this game was played, they were 1-2 in receiving yards in the NFL.
Yeah. And it looked like it. And then the tight ends were getting in on it too. Barner had a 26-yard reception. Davis Allen, a 27-yarder. Terrence Ferguson, a 27. These are that's a quarter of the field, right? These are chunk plays from both teams constantly. Now, the defensive lines were disruptive basically all game. As good as the running statistics look for both teams, the Rams go over 130 and the Seahawks go for 170 something. One of the big ones is Walker's 55-yarder and then Shaheed's 30. I guess that one doesn't count. Either way, it's a lot of.
No, Shaheed was a rush.
Was it a rush?
Yeah.
Either way, it's a lot of yards on the ground in a game where both lines actually played pretty well, and they were disruptive. And it's just, this is kind of what you get when everything's good. Like kind of everybody's good, and one mistake on special teams, you could say. Either one amazing play or one mistake, however you want to say it. That special teams touchdown that the Seahawks scored is essentially the difference in this game. You just don't account for that. You don't expect to be down 7 points somewhere in the game that the offense.
No, you can't do that. That's particularly bad when it's not like it was a kick and he caught it on his own 5-yard line. It was like midfield. So that means all the defense is within one half of the field. So you just have to stop them from getting through that. And so that is a mistake. Like, that's when they fired I heard on the broadcast, they fired their special teams coach in December, right? So they were already struggling with special teams with the Rams. So that was
and it bites them again in their next game in the NFC Championship game too.
The other note that I had here is that, like, Charbonnet looks pretty good. Like, I know if you're Seattle fans, you hate to see Walker go, but like, he looks good. Like, I think he can step in and be like the premier back, and they'll need at least 2 running back. Most NFL teams have 2 running backs, but they're I'd be happy with Charbonnet.
And they picked up Jadarian Price too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if he's what people think he could be, he could step right in too. So that's the other point as far as Seattle moving into 2026. This is partly discussing how good they were last year. The game we think turned them into the contending team, which is this game right here, and how much of this team is back. Essentially, all of it. There's a couple players that aren't back, but basically the whole team's back. The big glaring one that people would kind of think about is Walker. I know, Seattle insiders know all the other players, but that's the big one. The nation would notice. But anyone who's paying attention, Charbonnet was good, and I think Price is going to be good. So
yeah, and we haven't talked about Nick Emmanuel yet, who was incredible, and he went out with a concussion, and there was a noticeable difference for a bit in the defense where they needed to recover a bit after that. But he's a real difference maker. He's an absolute stud. And coming into this season, you'd be real happy having him on your team. He had 11 total tackles, 7 solo tackles in that game. So he didn't play the whole game. So
he's a queen on the chessboard. He can do anything from anywhere. Exactly. In the fourth quarter, that they lose Eman Wari, Kobe Bryant, and Rick Woolen.
That's right.
So there is a moment, and then in overtime, the Rams immediately drive 80 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when Seattle gets their turn in overtime and actually goes for it for two, for two for the win, I think somewhere in there they're realizing with the 3 people out in the secondary, we're not stopping the Rams if we give it back to them, because they were just gashing them at this point. And the crazy thing is, with all the momentum Seattle built back up, and it looked like they kind of ripped the heart out of the Rams, and then the Rams come out in overtime and immediately go 80 yards. Yeah. And I think they had a good return that got called back on a penalty that parked them back on the 20.
That's right.
So I could see how McDonald's looking and saying that offense, there's no stopping this offense. And one of my best chess pieces is, 3 of them, but the best one is missing now. Not sorry, Witherspoon. And
they've got some really good defensive players, but he was like,
players.
That guy was that's a significant player. Everyone will agree.
No, yeah, it's a significant player. Now you're adjusting on the fly to a team that's gashing you. So I could see why he just went for 2 and said, forget it. We're not playing for a tie here. We're just going to play for the win.
Yeah,
Maybe
both teams were like that. That was a note that I had here. Like, that's a good point about going for 2 and stuff. The Rams did too. The Rams did in the first quarter. That's why this had a feeling of a playoff game, like from the get-go, right? And it's because everyone was very clear about the importance of this game. If Seattle wins, they could lock up first place, and if Rams win, that they could have it. But they still have a game left with San Francisco. But it was a really important regular season game, division game. And both teams were playing like it, and you could tell because they were going for it on 4th down, and it was really, leaving it all out there.
What was the stat they put up? The Rams went up by 15 in the third quarter. Were 232-1 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, and the Seattle was 171 or something like that
when trailing by 15 in the
fourth quarter.
So they exercised that demon. I mean, obviously, you don't expect that. Especially, you don't expect that from teams at a team at this level, the Rams.
No, and like you said, this is the turning point game. Like the best thing we could find, and with championship teams, when you don't play well, when you don't have your A game, and you find a way to win, right? That's what makes championship DNA. You know what I mean? And so that's why we picked this game. Because they didn't play well. It was completely improbable. But you win a division game at home that puts you in a position to host playoff games now. And that's why this game was so key. And even though it wasn't executed the way you would have wanted, that's what makes Super Bowl champions, right?
You're up against a team that took you out last year, that you throw 4 interceptions against the first game this year. It was a close game, defensive struggle, but you still lose. You're down 16 points with 9.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Your fans are booing you. At this point of the game, you already have 2 turnovers, if not 3. You're on your way to giving up over 500 yards of offense. Mm-hmm. There's no indication. There's nothing. You're being time of possession is like 40 something to 20 something.
It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculously in the Ram. Almost every statistic is in the Rams' favor.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to even think you can come back here. Even your own crowd. The part that's killing me is the crowd. The crowd wasn't just quiet, right? One thing when the crowd's just sort of gutted and they're quiet. they're just booing them. They're just
multiple times in the game
booing them. Oh yeah.
Time of possession 40 minutes. The final total time possession 40 minutes to 26 minutes.
So maybe the 12th man knows what they're doing. They're like, oh, silence is not good enough. They need to know we're disappointed and get your act together. So whatever it is, I mean, we'll never know exactly how this happened, but they bring it right back.
Isn't that amazing?
The comeback's unbelievable.
No, and is it like you said, on November 16th, Rams 21, Seattle 19 in an absolute slugfest and like turnovers and then in the December 18th, 38-37, can't stop them, know. And that's what makes football so amazing. Like they're the same teams.
Yeah.
The same teams playing. And that was a really different game.
Yeah. And we're talking about two teams with good defenses. One of them, I think, ends up as the best defense statistically in the league, maybe.
I think
Seattle by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Top two anyways, one or two. So, but when you're up against the MVP, it doesn't, points don't matter, statistics don't matter. None of that matters leading into this game. It's just what happens in this game. And they did what it took.
Yeah. The one note I had too, just about the Rams, I know this is a Seattle review, but it was I love the 13 personnel, I think they call it, right? With the one running back and the three tight ends. And it does exactly what you hoped it would, like running the ball, controlling, more blocking, and then forcing the linebackers to stop the run. But then you have all those tight ends can catch, right?
Yep.
And so and you still get your passing game, and then it still opens up. They still, even though there's only one receiver mostly with Nakua, he's amazing, right? But the one note I had here is that there was a couple times where, they're running the ball successfully, the Rams, and then they go to pass it and the ball's not exactly where it needs to be. And I had a note about the tight ends don't have the best catch radius sometimes. Like that's the only downside of, if the ball's not perfect or the Stafford sort of have to run to one way and throw it and it's not exactly like a wide receiver can grab it from, a different position where tight ends really can't. And there was a couple of key drops with the Rams for this game too, which also facilitated the comeback. But that was my only note about them for that. The interesting thing I noticed about their three tight end personnel.
In the fourth quarter, those series of 3 and outs, multiple times tight ends were open and the ball just hit him right in the hands. To your point, if he's throwing that to Devontae Adams, who wasn't in there, or it's just another wide receiver too, it doesn't even have to be Nakua, just somebody with a better hands, a better catch radius.
Yeah.
Maybe they convert one or two of those. Not to take away from Seattle's defense, but I guess that's the other side of 13 personnel is when they're not all George Kittle. They're not all Travis Kelce's who actually do catch about pretty much whatever's thrown at them, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think of we're not, and it doesn't have to be like an OBJ, like one arm, like over the head stuff, but like, there's some of those catches there I think a wide receiver would have made. So,
right.
The last note that I had here was that I remember on the broadcast, so we're in overtime, Rams score, Seattle comes back. They have to have the 2-point conversion, right? Have to have it. And even on the broadcast, they're saying like, well, you call the best one you got, right? Because this is what you need to have. And it was an amazing play. Like it was an amazing play where they had the two receivers out wide come in, and then the tight end, like the third tight end, was on like a delay to just sort of sit in the middle. And the pass, Darnold's pass was amazing. Throws it by the ear hole of the defensive lineman and hits the tight end right in the hands. And like that was one of the best 2-point plays I've seen, like executed 2-point plays I've seen. And that's what it took for them, because if that glances off the helmet, this is Rams win in a game you're like, oh, they should have, and so that was a key 2-point play, and it was one of the best executed ones I've seen.
And that was Turner, the lineman who dropped and got the interception. Yes. He almost stopped that play.
Yep.
So, And again, all of that is the makings of a historic comeback that leads to, you could almost say that's the run to the Super Bowl starting on that game. Like, obviously they were having a great season, but that's they've made a statement now. Like this team can win it all. If you can beat the Rams, you can beat anybody.
Absolutely. And we're not playing well and got it done, which is what it takes to win championships.
Yep. Last point here was the utterly improbable 2-point conversion by Charbonnet.
Oh,
so this this play, if I totally forgot about this play, is so Darnold throws what's supposed to be, I guess, like some kind of screen pass, and the Rams defensive line is so disruptive, it basically breaks up the screen pass, but it's actually a backwards pass. They had to go back and review it a couple of times, but the overhead camera clearly shows at minimum it's lateral, if not moving back a few inches. So it's clearly a backwards pass. Everyone just sort of stops because it bounces off his helmet. I can't remember which Rams defensive lineman it was, but it bounces forward into the end zone, and then Charbonnet just casually walks up and picks it up. And upon review, it's like, oh yeah, that's a lateral.
A live ball. And he was the only one that walked towards the ball.
And it turns out to be a critical 2-point conversion, right?
Yeah. And it was watching it live, it looked like an incomplete pass, right? Which is why everyone on the field and the broadcast, didn't really say anything about it, because it looked like an incomplete pass. It got batted down, or it turned out it was knocked off went off the guy's helmet. But in review, it was clearly a backward pass. That's a live ball. And hats off to Charbonnet for being aware to pick it up, because if he didn't do that, it would have been a dead ball, I guess, if no one picked it up, or but anyway. So that was
think of how much penetration that lineman has, that it's hitting him in the helmet and it's backwards.
Yeah.
Like exactly. If he just turned and looked at the quarterback, he's picking it off, right?
Yeah. It was like at least 3 yards back from the line of scrimmage when it hit the helmet. And this was like a fast happening play. It wasn't like he was back there looking around, like he was just took the snap through it and he was already in the backfield.
Yeah. So both defensive lines were just, as in a game with so many yards, I've already said it, the defensive lines did play well, and especially Seattle's at the end of the game when it mattered most, the defensive line just turned it on. It was crazy. The Rams were handling them until the fourth quarter. Then they seemed like they had no answer for the defensive line at all. I don't know whatever he said to him, he's like, you guys feel like, you want to finish this game now?
Yeah. That was, you mentioned that earlier, that both defensive lines played well. For me, it was Seattle played well in stretches, like, because there was time where Stafford was getting a lot of time to throw. So I don't know if that was really their best time, but like, it looked like a completely different defensive line in the parts of the third and the fourth quarter for Seattle. So, which is what they're known for. Like, that's one of their strengths of their team. And so it just took a minute to get going.
Well, I mean, they left it as close to the end as possible to get going, but it worked. So, I mean, that's all I got for this one. That was, to me, that was the turning point game. Almost this entire team is back. Most of the team's healthy. I don't really know of any major injuries. Now that Darnold's done it, and he's done it in the way he has, by slaying this dragon and beating the same team again in the NFC Championship. Like, that's such a big deal to have this kind of rough of a game, a 2-interception, 3-turnover game, and still come back and win this game, then get faced with this same team where I think the Rams were probably thinking, oh yeah, we're not going to make that mistake again. Like, we've got them this time. And then Seattle gets them again. I mean, there's no reason to think this team isn't going all the way back to the Super Bowl this year. Or if not, I mean, I know it's super hard to go 2 years in a row, but the whole thing's right here in front of them.
Yeah. And that's a really good point about talking about the NFC Championship game too. All three of those games, all three Rams Seattle games, that season looked so different, like they were played really differently. And listen, that's the Rams were really good, and some people would feel like they deserve to be there, but that's the thing about football. When you play one game, like, anything can happen in one game, and Seattle, despite not playing their best, brought it out at the end, which is what you need to do, and then they did it again in the NFC Championship game. That's beating them twice in the last month is really an accomplishment, so.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say that the Rams had 3 shots at them and failed twice. Yeah. So, Seattle, there's no argument to make that Seattle had an easy schedule on the way in, or didn't have to go through the best team to the Super Bowl. They absolutely beat the best team twice. Other than themselves, they beat what most people would argue, if Seattle didn't win the Super Bowl, the Rams were winning it. Right? Yeah. Like, it's just, that's how good the Rams were last year. So this year, I think it's just them again in the NFC, and the whole thing's just heightened because of what's going on with the Rams right now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So we'll see. Got any other notes here?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's all I got too. So if
Well,
you're still with us,
one more note.
Oh, we got another
Cooper
note.
Kupp played really well. You know,
Yep.
like, and he was because he's
besides the fumble.
Yeah, besides the fumble, but it was a couple because he was the Triple Crown winner like not that long ago, and has had some ups and downs. But like he made some key catch. Had the fumble, but made some key catches in this game too, which was good to see as well. That was it. That was my last note.
And he has one of the more important catches in the overtime that leads again. Just fine. He fumbles early in the game. You know what else? Two of the turnovers didn't really hurt them.
Yeah.
The Kupp's fumble, even though it was on the way into the red zone, the Rams don't convert it for points.
Mm-hmm.
And another turnover, the other turnover in the red zone, that doesn't get converted for points either. Now, obviously, it takes points off the board, but at least it wasn't a double whammy where not only do you not score, but you also give up points on the ensuing drive. In both of those, in the first half, it's just the first half is over, so the Rams don't capitalize with immediate points. Mm-hmm. And on the turnover on like the goal line, again, that doesn't get converted immediately into points. So it's your defense holds. So they weren't as painful. Now the other one was 56 yards down to the 1 yard line, touchdown. But that's another thing that makes this game so impressive. When you give up what essentially should be a pick six, it's so hard to win a game. That's why Shahid's punt return was just critical. so massive in this game.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a really good point about the turnovers, because if you lose the turnover battle 3-0, like you should have no business winning that game. But if if you play well enough that the turnovers don't cost you, like 2 of the 3 didn't, then that puts you in a position to win.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think that's all I got.
That's all.
Okay, all right. Well, if you're still with us, we appreciate you checking out the video. If you like what we have going on and you'd like to support us, like and subscribe would go a long way, and we'd super appreciate it. So for Jeff Dover, I'm John Barbin, and that's your Saturday versus Sunday podcast.